Hello everyone and welcome back to part 3 of building stories feed app. So in the last part we created the stories UI using images and we have now a sliding image like this. In case of Trello we were done with creating the data for stories. Now what we are going to do next is we are going to create informational stories, like there will be text and images as such in our app. So let's start off with that. Now for this kind of stories, we obviously need to update the storage data with some JSON objects. So I'm going to target the entertainment category next. And in the entertainment category, I'm going to create a array of JSONs. And let me just copy this object here. Now the difference will be, instead of image caption post, this will be text image post. And we will have some title for this post as well, and the text which we need to add below the image. Now I have some interesting facts about how we made the first headphone. Then I'm going to add it in my text field. Title will be history of first headphones. Then we will also have background color for the entire post. For now, let's just copy one color from our stories color palette. I think this would be good enough. So let me just copy the color and add it here. Then we need an image. So I have some images uploaded already on my Cloudinary account. I'm going to take this headphone image and add it here. I think that should be it. Then we need to add another object like this as well. So in this case, I will add history of guitar. So let's just name it to something like how guitar got. Then let's add another background color. And the image. So once we have the JSON object ready for our entertainment category, the next part is to actually go ahead and use it. So in case of our renderer, if you remember, we had a map function like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a if condition here, which is if story item dot type is equal to the image caption post which we had added here. Then we will render the full page image. So let's just minimize this. And if the story item dot type is equal to text image post, then we'll return something else. For now, let's just see how much we can copy from here. So let me just copy this entire return. It is easier to copy it using the collapsible icon. Okay, we should copy it from here as well and add it here. So obviously we don't have a background image for this kind of post. We are going to use background color. And the background color will be the one which we assigned in our post. I think we should rename this to something like post image URL, since background image URL will be confusing. So let's rename it to post image URL. Then we need caption, but instead of caption we will have title first. So let this be changed to the title. and this could be text color, or now the text color can be left as white. For both the posts. Let's just try to render the stories component and see what we are getting before we move ahead. Okay, after the server is started, it is working fine. So we have our caption here. We need to set the background color properly, I think, and minimize this. So this is where we are supposed to change this from URL to story item dot background color, and now we have our proper items. So we have a title. So next thing we need is the image. So let's add img src attribute, and the src would have story item dot the actual post image URL. Let's save. So now we have our images as well. Then we should have some text below it. So I think span should be sufficient. Within that we will add story item dot text. It needs to be white. So let's add some class name. We can copy it from here as well. And it is the size by 1. 2. Okay, let's just keep it as Excel. This should be good enough. And I don't want it to be center aligned, so I'm going to align it to the left with some margin at the left. That looks good enough. So we are done with informational posts as well. So let's just go back to Trello, and we are done with creating data for stories. Okay, one thing to note is that the stories data which I have is just for 2 categories. Obviously, once you are done with the app, you will have to add it for all the categories. That is one task which you can take up on your own. I'll be adding the JSON when I upload it on GitHub as well. So the next is to make the desktop version of website proper. What I mean by that is, if I remove this and come back to the desktop version, this is how it currently looks, and I don't want it to look like this. So the first thing which I am going to do is I am going to increase the width and height of my stories for desktop. So there is an attribute called width in React Insta Stories npm. Let me just show that. So there is a width and height attribute. Within that, I'm going to assign 100 VW and 100 VH and the height. So now my image is okay. Now the next thing that we need to do is we need to center all these images that we have. So for our div container which we have here, we need to add a desktop limit. So for that, we have a max width for 768px. I think that should be good enough. Now we need to center this itself. So we can do that in 2 ways. First is to center this using class name flex. Center item center. Next, we will grab this within a div, or let's just inspect and check. So this is my div. Okay. So what we can do is, instead of assigning max screen WMD to this, let's just keep it as complete, and we can assign this to another div within this child, within which all our other components will come in. So let's just cut all this, add it within a div, and here we will have the class which is max width class. Now we can center this one using flex. I think we need to center the image as well. So we can add flex with a flex call property to us, have them in column fashion. So I think this look decent. Like this is a decent version on desktop, and let's just check if it is working fine on our mobile as well. Yeah, it is working fine. So similar to this, we need to make changes in our image-based post as well. So in case of food, we have the image like this. I think I made some wrong changes here. Let's just check. Yeah, this should be background image. Just check the desktop version here. So we don't want the image to be like this. So let's just make the similar changes here as well. So we will have flags, justify and stuff in this as well, and wrap that in another div. All the contents basically in another div like this. Let's add a closing div as well. Other than that, we shouldn't have this image to be repeating. So, and let's just add this style within the internal div instead of the external one with max and height. So we will need W full and H full, I think. Okay, and we don't want the image to repeat. So in this image, we will have a no repeat property. So let's just search for no repeat in background repeat, which is this one. Save. Then we need the background to be centered. So I think it should be BG center or something like that. Background position center basically. It's saved. And now we have our images centered on the desktop version. This should be good enough for desktop versions, and let's just check on mobile versions. Yeah. So we are done with making the website proper for desktop. On mobile phone, it was already done. Next task in our hello, let's just check what it is. Okay, we are done with text plus image informational post as well. So we need to add the logic to go back on stories end. Basically, there is no way to go back automatically when the stories end currently. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a property from this, which is I think stories end or something, which is this one. And I'm going to push my page back to the original categories page. So on all stories end, we are going to write or assign a function which is go back to home page. And let's just define this function here. So I don't think we need the log. So let's define a function. We are going to use the use history hook again. And let's just initialize our use history Okay, I think we can go with const for both. They are not redefined. And on stories, and what I want is to go back to my index page. Now if we come back, okay, we shouldn't loop it because we are going back on stories and hit refresh. So now when the story ends, we should be redirected back to our home page. And that is what we needed. Other than that, we need to add a credit section. I will add the credit section in the final. So basically what we need to do is we need to add a eye icon here. On click of which we need to open a pop-up. So for that, we need to go back to our home.js file, and in this header, I just have two divs. The first div will be the stories field. My second div will contain a eye icon. So I'm going to copy these material icons, and I think the icon name will be information. So this info icon is needed. So the name is info. Let's save. So now we have our icon as well. I think we need some spacing from the top. Let's have a class name is equal to top one. Top spacing is okay, top dash one. We also need position relative. So let's add a relative as well. Okay, but I think we will need a fixed position because we need to have it towards the right. Then we need to add a property which is right. Phi, I think. Okay. Basically, I am using the positional properties here. So if you search for right, you will get the property which is right dash and the space that you need. I think we need to increase the top. This looks good enough. And right can be decreased to 4, I think. Now we need a pointer for this cursor. So let's just check for cursor. Do we have a pointer? Let's add a pointer. Other than that, even in the desktop, we don't have pointers for this. So let's add the pointer to our category items as well. And in the desktop also, these icons are a little bit stretched, so category items. So what we can do is we can assign a max width to our grid. So let's assign a max width. MD level screen. And we need to center them. So let's wrap them in a div. Let's hope this works. The only thing I'm not able to understand is how to center this. If we figure that out, we should be done. And we are done. So we have our centered items. And in our phones also we have the proper spacing. So that finishes the centering part here. We are working on adding the credit section, so let's continue with that. For credits, we need a pop-up here. So in the components part, I'm going to create another file, which is credits component. Let's just have an RFC first. Then Tailwind has a pop-up which we can use, which is models. So this is the pop-up which we can modify. So I'm going to copy this entire code. We had clipboard as well. Then I'm going to use HTML to JSX converter to convert this to proper React code. We don't need class. Let's just copy this code and paste it in this div. Hit save. Then we need to show this only when the eye icon is clicked. So we will need a state variable. So in our home.js, let's import useStateHook. Then we create a useState, which is this credits of is equal to use state. This will be set to false, and we'll have a method which is set credits of open, which will update the visibility. So if this value is true, then we will show our credits pop-up. So if credits pop-up is open, then we need to show our component. So let's import the component. Import credits component from /credits component. Copy this and add it here. Then we will pass the method for closing it as well. Colon will be null. Let's save. So whenever this credit pop is open, we will, for true, we will open the credits pop-up. So this needs to be open when the eye icon is clicked. So we will have a on-click method here. Which will set our credits pop-up to off. So the value will get updated to true. Now if we come back to our app and click on this, we have a pop-up open. Now we need to modify this slightly. So I'm just going to keep this value true for some time and focus on my model. Now the first thing I notice is it is not having complete width and it has some extra code which I don't want. So I'm going to remove the comments first. I don't want this SVG as well. This should be changed to credits. This is where our credits will come. So let's just copy a sample credit. I will add the entire credits later when I have all the images. Then in case of button, we don't need the cancel button. We just need a button to go back. So we need this pop-up to be 100% height and width. So let's just inspect and check what is giving this pop-up the width it has currently. So this is my inline block. I think I can go for an edge screen here. I don't want the margin. So I'm going to remove this my. Then we can have a full width as well. So let's add a W screen. Okay, now I think there is some padding somewhere. Yeah, this is the padding which we don't need. So let's remove this PT4 and PB20. We need to, so there will be a lots of credits here. Let me just show you the final credits which I have for the entire app. Just give me a second. So this is how the credits are actually. So these are all the credits which I have, and I need to render them in my code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this all, but instead of showing them in this small way, I'm going to write a function here which is, let's say, render credit items, and I'm going to add a function about this credits component. Let's add a return keyword. Give that. This is how it actually looks. So if I come back to my screen, this is how it will look. So first thing I notice is I need this text to be aligned left. So I add a class name which is, let's say, text left. Then we need to have this scrollable. So let's add a max height first. So in case of height, for now I'm going to use the built-in one. Later on I will add my custom. I'm adding H96, and we need overflow scroll. Overflow Y scroll basically to allow it to be scrollable on Y axis. So this is basically how it should look like. And other than that, I think we should have some padding at top and bottom. So let's go back here, and in this div, let's add a py4 as well. We can reduce the height a bit later. Other than that, we need to have a on-click handler for this go back. So, and we need to have this lines one by one below the other. So I'm going to add br tags like this in all my text. I'm going to fast forward this process to arrange them properly. So I'm done with adding all the br tags, and this is how it looks. But I don't want these links to be seen properly to point them to the right users. Like I don't want them to be white as such. So let's take care of that as well. I'm going to add a custom CSS here, which is credits component.css, and within that I need a color like this for my text. So let's inspect and check what color this has. Let's just have this color for all our tags. We can keep the opacity as 1. Then import this in my credits component. That shouldn't be the color. Okay, just check color. Yeah, this should be the color. 255 is actually white. and now we have colored as red. Now we need to add a only handler to on our go back button. So on this go back button, let's have an onClick, which would be equal to go back to home page again, but we have passed this method, so we can use it directly and set the value as false. This is a prop, so we need to pass it from here. So on click of go back, so value should get changed. So as you can see, our credits component is ready. I think the height should be a bit lesser. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this H full or H screen from here and add a custom height. So let's name it as credits container. Copy its height, assign the height as 90 each. 95, yeah, that looks better. Then also for this credits section as well. So instead of H96, have a custom 80 VH, I think. No, 70 VH. Good enough. And let's just check on desktop resolution as well. Okay, this button needs to be at the center. So let's take care of that. So instead of row reverse, we can go for justify center. Yeah, this looks better. And this takes care of most of the things which we need for our app. And we are done with the main tasks for our credit screen. Now, a few tasks which are remaining is deployment of this app on Netlify. So before that, let's just add a task here, which is to deploy the application on Netlify. So for that, the first thing which we need to do is we need to push all those changes which we have to our I don't think I will need credit screen, but let's just push all the changes to GitHub. So we can name this as stories screen added, commit the message and sync. Now let's just go to GitHub and check. So we have our commit and we have our properties working fine. Now the next thing that we need is we need to go to netlify.com and create an account. Once you have the account, you will be greeted with a dashboard like this. Then you click on new site from Git, select GitHub, add the repository which you use, select your repository and click on deploy site. This will deploy our site on a URL which we can use later. I'm going to fast forward this video until the site is deployed. We need to take care of some warnings before the deploy would happen properly. So the first warning is in stories component on line 10. So this map function does not return anything. Anyways, we will add a return null. We should remove the property, and other than that, on line 55, we need to update the alt attribute. So let's update that as well. Yeah, I forgot to add an alt attribute here. So we can add it as story. It's safe. Now we can push these both changes, and hopefully our build will get deployed. Whenever we make any kind of push, Netlify automatically starts building and deploying, as you can see. So I'm going to fast forward again, and hopefully the build will work properly this time. Now after some time the build gets completed, and as you can see we have an URL here. If I click on this URL, I can see the website hopefully, and this URL that we have right now can be changed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in my site overview section, and in the site settings I'm going to change the site name to something like, let's say, stories feed app, and hit save. So this would be my final stories feed app URL. And now hopefully the website will look properly on phone. Let's just wait for some time for it to load. Images running properly. Let's just check for the entertainment as well. And we have our images loading as well. We should have a minimum height as well. So for these images, so that there is no jerk kind of effect, you can do that on your own. But this kind of finishes the third part of this series, which was building another kind of stories app and deployment on it to Netlify. If you found this video useful, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more such videos. So this brings us to the end of Stories Feed app creation series. In the upcoming videos, I'm going to continue with late code problems and also build another app which is called as Friends or Host. So in the upcoming videos, we will try to build this app and we will also solve late code problems. So stay subscribed to the channel and see you in the next videos on this channel as well. Goodbye and have a nice day everyone.